Customs officers could resume some form of industrial action today, continuing protests which started last Friday. On that day, they moved from a go-slow to a full strike at the port, the airport, and the Customs Department's offices at Warrens. The National Union of Public Workers wants the Barbados Revenue Authority to withdraw option forms given to customs officers to join the BRA as part of a proposed merger. NUPW General Secretary Roslyn Smith, President Akani McDowell, and other top officials of the union are to meet today at their Dalkeith Road headquarters to discuss the next course of action in this matter. They are expected to announce those plans later today. NUPW officials will also be meeting with Sanitation Service Authority workers later today over the docking of their pay during recent national protests. Caribbean people need to understand the significance of tourism and its importance to the survival of the region's economies. This from Chairman of the Caribbean Tourism Organization and Minister of Tourism in Barbados, Richard Seeley. He says nothing must be taken away from the importance of other sectors in the region. However, Mr. Seeley stressed that for there to be any real growth and development, tourism must play a primary role. Minister Seeley made the comments at the Radisson Hotel at a forum organized by the CTO.
We certainly need to make tourism way more forefront in the minds of not only officials, but society generally in the Caribbean, because the truth is that even though we want to see a buoyant agriculture and a buoyant manufacturing sector, services is the future, and tourism services is leading the way. And so we, of course, certainly need to keep that in mind.
Mr. Seeley is encouraging regional stakeholders to do more to emphasize to the average person the importance of the sector to individual territories.
With the exception of Guyana and Trinidad, I think almost all of our CTO members, tourism is basically the main activity, and certainly in terms of percentage to GDP, probably stands at #1, possibly at #2 in a few cases. But we really don't have much else to speak of. And if you look at the investment end of things, the international business sector, it is all directly linked to how we are perceived as a tourism destination.
Mobile number portability should be a reality in Barbados in just a few months. That's where mobile phone users, regardless of their provider, will be able to keep their mobile numbers if they decide to switch networks. Chief Executive Officer of Cable and Wireless Communications, Phil Bentley, recently revealed that the company is ready for the change under the new Flow brand.
Local number portability is a big issue for me because essentially we were locking people in to a number and not allowing freedom of choice, and that isn't right. So when I joined, I committed us to embracing local number portability, embracing what's called OTT, over the top. So these are things like Facebook or Netflix or Viper, or all this technology that runs on our network that essentially we don't get paid for, but we provide a service.
Mr. Bentley says it has already been successfully launched in Jamaica, and he looks forward to the start in Barbados, which should be by the end of November.
I'd like to see us move to one phone in the Caribbean. Everyone's got two phones. They've got a digiphone and they've got a line, well, now to be a flow phone. But once you've got local number portability, you don't need two phones, especially if you're not charging a differential rate between a call that lands on your own network versus a call that lands on somebody else's network. Now, traditionally, our competitors always charge quite a big differential between the two, which meant that everyone has either a line, what was a line phone now, a flow phone, or a Digicel phone. But actually, there's no reason to do that.
Pit toilets in Barbados could soon be a thing of the past. The eradication of this age-old method of waste disposal is part of plans for rapid change in the island's urban corridors under Habitat 3, the UN's Conference on Housing and Sustainable Urban Development, which Barbados has signed on to. Co-chair of Habitat 3 Committee and Chief Town Planner Mark Cummins spoke about the development on today's edition of Morning Barbados.
Very shortly in Barbados, when the Water Authority Act is amended, we will have a situation where the suck well will no longer be the primary source of sewage disposal. Not that you cannot use it, but it will not be the primary source. What we propose to do with the approval of the minister, is especially in our core urban areas, especially our Bridgetown, we definitely have to put in place a program which will come out through the Habitat Free as part of the plan of action for the further eradication of pit toilets.
The news comes as the committee prepares to roll out a major public awareness campaign on Habitat 3 starting tomorrow at the Queen's Park Steel Shed at 5:30 p.m. Co-chair and economist Jeremy Stevens says members of the public will get a chance to give their input on a number of issues.
What is it that you would like to see for Barbados over the next 20 years? How should we treat abandoned buildings? How should we look at green spaces within the urban areas? How should we treat those green spaces to ensure that the youth use them more often? How can we look to provide more affordable housing, not low-cost housing, but affordable housing for persons at risk? That would be the 18 to 35-year-old age group, and retirees as well. So there are a whole bunch of issues we want to bring to the community and see how they wish to treat them going forward.
Housing Minister Dennis Kelman believes Barbados needs to adopt a new mindset as it relates to urbanization. He says it's not only about high-rise buildings, high-rise housing and tall buildings going up in the urban corridors of the country.
In Barbados, that when we look at urbanization as it relates to it cannot be the same old commercial concept where you have the merchants, where you have the port employing 1,000 people. It has to be more service-oriented. And we have to ensure that when we structure housing, that you structure housing to suit where you are going and not where you were. And one of the things that I also want to say is that we have to be very careful how we continue to keep people away from the jobs and how we create social problems for those persons.
We'll have regional and international news after the break.